Thank you for joining us for the required training for annual allocations. We have 4 training modules for you in this video that will cover the entire ANL process and provide a firm baseline of information that should allow you to complete the funding application process. Before you begin these training modules, you should register for TED-Ed at the top of your screen. Following completion of the video training, you will need to make sure to navigate to the Think section on the right-hand menu and answer some questions about the material we've covered. You will also need to provide your contact information and organization affiliation in order for your RSO to receive credit for completing the training. Welcome to the online training for student government's annual allocations. We have a series of 4 training modules for you, including an ANAL overview, a module about accessing and utilizing the RSO funding website, a module on building your event budgets, and finally, a module about what to do once your decision comes in. In the first module, we're going to talk a little bit about the committee, its purpose, and how that informs the decisions it makes. So what can be funded by ANAL? There are actually 2 funding opportunities rolled into the annual allocations process, and we want to make sure that you understand what those are. We also want to make sure that you know what you need to do to apply, as well as when various deadlines occur. Finally, the committee goals and considerations and imparting your vision sections are going to talk about what the committee is looking for and what they're considering when reviewing budgets and how you can express your goals and needs to the committee most effectively. A very basic overview of SG annual allocations is that it's a committee of students allocating money that comes from student fees. It's students giving money to students for campus life activities. So how do you apply? It's all done online through the RSO funding website, rsofunding.uchicago.edu. The mechanics of using the site are the focus of the next training module. Annual allocations provides RSOs with some of their primary budget needs for the upcoming year. Those generally include your top priorities and annual events or programs, as well as operational expenses and funding for events occurring before the 5th week of fall when SGFC begins meeting. If you have new programs that you're going to try out next year, it might be a better fit to go to SGFC once you're a little closer to the program date and know what the costs and needs are going to be. It's hard at this stage to plan for a new program, but for your big traditions, top priorities, and annual programs, it's usually pretty easy to look back at your history and come up with a plan for next year at this point. I want to highlight that ANAL is not meant to be the sole source of funding for RSOs. This is one of many methods by which groups fund their organizations. The committee receives a lot more requests than they have the ability to fund. The committee will see requests in excess of $1 million. Most of these are for great ideas and programs, but the committee is only able to fund on the order of 40%, and so will focus on the top priorities from each group. Getting some funding decisions now through ANAL gives you the seed money for your major programs so that you can start the rest of your fundraising efforts in the summer or early in the fall. These efforts would include brainstorming your fundraisers, planning when you might charge for tickets for events, seeking co-sponsorships, and applying to other funding committees. As I mentioned earlier, there are 2 funds running in this process. We've combined these 2 so that it's a streamlined application process. You can apply for both at the same time, and you don't have to have a second application process to contend with. The first is Student Government's annual allocations. This is for campus events and programs and operational expenses. These are the kinds of things that you would take to SGFC during the year if you didn't get ANAL funding for them. Note that annual allocations does not fund capital improvements or student travel taking place after the 5th week of fall. SGFC has funds set aside for capital and travel expenses that you can apply for next year. The second fund is the Community Service Fund. They also have an annual process for direct service projects in the community, as well as community-focused events and programs. It's important to keep in mind that there are some additional criteria for applying for the Community Service Fund. The first is the benefit test. They want to see that 50% plus 1 of the individuals benefiting from your event or program are coming from the wider community and not just the university. That's how they define community-focused programs. Additionally, for any request that goes to the Community Service Fund, they require that 10% of the event cost be fundraised. Many groups will have a mix of events from the Community Service Fund and ANAL in their budget. This is perfectly normal, and your budgets will be reviewed based on which committee you have indicated your budget for each individual event. There are several steps that you'll need to complete to meet the requirements to apply for funding through annual allocations. It's really important to take some time at this early stage and make sure to become familiar with what you need to do, as missing out on any of these steps can disqualify your application. Please note that this isn't the only opportunity for funding for next year. You will be able to apply to SGFC or CSF next year for any programs not funded through ANAL. whether or not you included them on your annual budget. So, don't rush to submit an annual budget for a program that isn't ready. The first application eligibility requirement is that your RSO must be in at least its second year. If you're a brand new student organization in our red category, you will have the opportunity to get funding next year by working with SGFC, but you will not be eligible for ANL in your first year. The second step is for you to have active RSO status. Every year, the Center for Leadership and Involvement requires that each RSO registers through Blueprint in the spring, complete required trainings, and participate in a fall orientation. You have to have completed those requirements to be eligible for funding. If your organization did not complete those requirements and has a frozen status, you'll find a notification in the RSO funding website that you're ineligible to submit a new budget. If your RSO is frozen, you can contact your RSO advisor to find out what steps you might have missed, but you will not be eligible for ANL this year. The next step is to complete ANL training, which you're working on right now. A member of your team will need to complete the TED Ed module training associated with this video and complete all of the questions included in the Think section to the right of the screen. Each organization will need to have a representative complete the training, and each completion will satisfy the training requirement for only a single organization. You will not be able to confer completion credit across multiple organizations from a single submission. Next is a meeting with an RSO advisor. After the training deadline, you will receive a communication from the Student Activities Center that includes a link to the online calendar where you can sign up to meet with an advisor during second, third, or fourth week. These meetings will not focus on details or line items within your budget, but rather will be used to discuss your organization's mission, goals, and how those inform your annual budget priorities. Depending on your organization's classification, you may be assigned to meet with a peer advisor, your regularly assigned advisor, or one of our other advisors. Failure to complete the meeting requirement will mean that your budget is not considered for ANL. Number 5 is an optional step of attending a budget workshop. This is a great opportunity during fourth week to meet with members of the committee that will be reviewing your budget. It's a chance to get their ideas, feedback, and share your thoughts with them. It's an all-around good opportunity, but it is optional. Step 6 is submitting your budget online. All budgets have to be submitted through the RSO funding website. Budgets are due on Sunday of 5th week. Now keep in mind, that's the very first day of 5th week, not the end of the weekend after 5th week. And finally, you'll need to print a hard copy of your budget and drop it off in the Student Activities Center on Monday following the online submission deadline. Deadline information is posted on our website with specific dates for the current academic year, so you can see exactly when things are due, but I just want to talk you through some of the schedule really quickly. The online training for TED Ed module opens 10th week of winter quarter and is due by the end of spring break. Second through fourth weeks are the meetings with your advisor. Make sure you're on the lookout for the meeting sign-up link mid-first week so that you can sign up early. If you wait to sign up, you may find you have limited options. Fourth week are the optional budget workshops that are really helpful. And then the very beginning of fifth week is when budgets are due. Following that, in sixth week, you'll get your decisions online through the website. You'll be able to log in to see those. If you feel you have a need to appeal, seventh week is the due date for appeals. For the Community Service Fund annual allocations, the decisions will come out seventh week, and appeals due date will be the following during eighth week. Again, the full timeline with specific dates is available on the Center for Leadership and Involvement website and is linked via the funding website. It's important to familiarize yourself so you don't miss any of these deadlines. When the committee is reviewing your budget, what are they looking for? What do they want to see? And what are they asking from you? The committee's goal is to take the student fee funds that they have and allocate them across as many different interests, communities, and types of activities that they can, so that these fee funds, paid into by all students, have a broad reach on campus. They're going to review how your proposed events and programs meet your goals and where they fit in that sort of mosaic of campus offerings. What are the considerations that they're going to review your budget to decide on what they're able to fund? Well, there are quite a few components to that. The first is the current resources available to your organization. You will be asked to provide an accounting for the amount of money that you expect to have in your account at the end of this year. They want to know what that money is earmarked for in the next year. If you were to have a high account balance at the end of the year with no specific plans for what to do with it, the committee is probably going to expect that you use those funds that you already have to pay for your events, and they're going to use their funds to fund organizations or events that don't already have resources available. This allows them to ensure that as many events and programs are occurring on campus in the coming year as possible. So it's very important to be thoughtful in explaining an account balance and how you plan to utilize it. The committee also wants to see a history of responsible budgeting and programming. Have you ever held this event in the past? Was it successful? Have you been able to stay on budget? And has your budget met your needs? They need to be sure that they can count on the information you're giving them and that you'll be able to follow through once they give you money for your programs. They also want to see your commitment to fundraising. ANL is not intended to be the sole source of funding for any group, so if you've got a larger event or a larger budget overall, they want to see that you're committing to fundraising for that. They want to understand the effort you're putting into achieving your goals so they can gauge your commitment to your programs and support those events accordingly. They're also going to consider the availability of other funding opportunities. There are lots of different funds on campus, some of which have a particular focus, whether it's the arts, a specific academic discipline, or multicultural events. They're all going to consider what other opportunities are out there, and if the event you're proposing fits with one of those other opportunities, they're probably going to expect that you find some level of support from those other sources as well. Next, they need to understand what it is you're asking for. So the clarity of your program purpose and a thorough description of your event really is vital. If you provide a vague description that doesn't help them understand what you're trying to do and how it advances your mission or goals, it will be difficult for the committee to justify supporting the budget. Additionally, the detail of your budget allows them to understand how you intend to utilize the funds. They need to be able to see itemized costs. The committee is actually prohibited from funding miscellaneous or nebulous line items. Finally, there are two sources of information that will be really helpful for you in understanding what the committee can fund. Those are the SGFC guidelines and cost guide. The guidelines give you great information about the kinds of things that the committee can fund, the kinds of things that they don't generally fund, and things they are actually prohibited from funding. The guidelines help you make sure you're on the right track. The second is the SGFC cost guide. This guide includes information about some of the most common expenses they see and provides a good idea of the range of costs that they will consider for those. The cost guide also helps keep the committee consistent between groups and budgets. We've already talked a little bit about the descriptions and specificity you're going to put into your budget request, but there are a lot of other ways that you're able to communicate your vision and goals to the committee. There's an opportunity to upload supporting documents. You don't have to use this exhaustively, but when you have additional information to share, you can do so by adding an additional document. Participation in one of the budget workshops is a great chance to sit down with some members of the committee and actually talk through your budget. They can then bring that information back to the committee at large during deliberations. Finally, for our groups in the purple RSO category, you will have an opportunity to present to the committee and talk with them about your budgets. That completes our overview section of the annual allocation process. Upcoming are modules on topics including accessing and using the RSO funding website, building and uploading budgets, and what to do after the funding decision comes in.